moving to court early morning, set to stop the same. We will be hosting on this bulletin Siaya Senator James Orengo to talk to us more about just what they seek to achieve. So stay with us for that. But let's begin with our top story now, and we start our bulletin in Homa Bay County, where Court Leader Raila Odinga has said his coalition will only participate in a free and fair election through the new laws and the use of an electronic system of monitoring elections. Raila wondered why Jubilee is opposed to by proposing changes, yet the system has successfully worked in several countries, including recently in Ghana. Rashid Ronald begins our bulletin.
The court leader has been in Homa Bay County for the last 3 days, attending the tourism and Luo cultural festivals. And while he was away, something happened in Parliament on matters election. Oh yes, this was a great opportunity for him to join the debate with President Uhuru Kenyatta on the receiving end.
We vote electronically, and then transmission is also done electronically. This is what we're demanding, nothing less. And Uhuru Kenyatta can have his own elections. The one we will participate in, the one which will have been done according to the law, which is mutually negotiated between his team and the team of court. That is what I tell Uhuru Kenyatta. No transparency, no elections. No transparency, no transparency, no elections.
Apart from several countries in Africa, the court leader said the digital voter registration worked during the recent by-elections.
It was used in Ghana just 1 week ago. And it worked in Ghana. It worked in Nigeria. It worked in Gambia. It worked in Tanzania. Why should it fail in Kenya?
Fall back on manual vote, manual identification is because of lack of network. Let us be very clear. If you can do biometric voter registration across the country, you can do electronic voter identification across the country.
We are not going to accept what we saw in Parliament yesterday. Jubilee administration are panicked, they are on the run, and they are like devoured lion, ready to kill anybody. But we are telling them we are ready for that.
ODM Chairman John Mbadi said the opposition may resort to mass action if the government insisted on such amendments.
These people we call Jubilee, the only language they can listen to is mass action.
And so Thursday, political observers will be keenly watching what transpires in Parliament with such a stand from the opposition. Rashid Ronald, KTN News in the county of Homa Bay.
And so tonight we'd love to hear from you on our big question. We're asking you, do you think the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy has justifiable reasons to boycott the 2017 general election? Send us your views on KTN News, KTN Kenya, or you can tweet me directly at Sophia Wanuna, or even send in a message 22155. Does CORD have justifiable reasons to boycott the 2017 general election? Now, the National Assembly is set to hold another special sitting tomorrow morning as the government makes a second attempt to have the law on elections and campaign financing amended after yesterday's session ended in disarray. Now, in a bid to ensure the amendments are effected by all means, President Uhuru Kenyatta had on Wednesday convened a Jubilee Party parliamentary meeting at State House to map out a new strategy after his troops were outwitted by opposition MPs. However, it's Deputy President William Ruto who's reported to have led the PG meeting after the president spent the entire day outside Nairobi. Here's Duncan Haimba with more.
After failing spectacularly on Tuesday to push for 2 crucial amendments on electoral laws, the ruling Jubilee wing, which is the majority party in Parliament, is plotting around 2 of the special sitting. By the time the Tuesday session was flopping, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, had already published a gazetted notice to have the National Assembly reconvene for yet another special sitting on Thursday from 9:30 a.m. To avoid a similar fiasco, the Thursday sitting has been gazetted to run until midnight, implying members will have to square it out entire day or till late into the night, should need be. On Tuesday, the government had employed nearly all tricks in the book, only to be beaten hands down by a vigilant and lean opposition squad. From the onset, all members of parliament were ordered to alight from their vehicles at the Intercontinental Hotel and Parliament Road roundabout and walk to the National Assembly. This was aimed to ensure only MPs walk to parliament, minus their security detail, personal assistants and drivers, so as to ensure a very limited number of persons within the precincts of parliament. To return the frustration, a section of opposition MPs blocked the speaker from entering into the chambers as they targeted the mess, forcing the speaker to retreat and convene a 2-hour kamkunji with the MPs. Within parliament, the network was jammed and communication was on and off, whose aim was to ensure MPs don't communicate to their principals outside parliament. This saw a section of senators led by Moses Wetangula, James Orengo, Boni Halwale and Mike Sonko move right to the entrance into the chambers to monitor goings-on. As usual, as soon as the shouting match began, Parliamentary Broadcast Unit live transmission was taken off air, leaving both the public and parliamentary journalists in darkness, only to see the speaker exit the chamber surrounded by the orderlies. As CORD MPs followed behind, chanting. Claims of MPs engaging in a scuffle emerged as well.
We were having discussions with Honorable Ngunjiri. From nowhere, Esther just came and I felt a spray like tear gas or pepper in my 2 eyes and face. So now I'm crying, take me to water, I'm dying. And the members like Waititu are holding me there to suffer more. That is very bad. I want the speaker, I've gone to his office to complain, I informed him in the house when I was in tears. I want the speaker to take, sanctions and measures on that lady.
Details from Wednesday's Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting at State House remain scanty, but word has it that MPs are under strict instructions to ensure the amendments are effected and have been directed to employ a man-to-man marking of CORD MPs. However, the opposition has declared it's no retreat, no surrender.
Our resolve to resist this provocation, our resolve to resist this flawed, unlawful and unconstitutional process has not changed.
CORD says the issue is not about the amendment, but the procedure, claiming it's government-sponsored backdoor amendment.
Our desire for dialogue is not born out of weakness, it's born out of patriotism. That they are not interested in it, will also play their game and will take the ball to their court, and we are waiting for them tomorrow.
The president has since responded to Mbita Member of Parliament Millie Odhiambo over her attacks on him at Parliament.
Tuko na wenzetu, na mimi nimesema sana ya kwamba wenzetu hawana agenda ya kujenga Kenya isipokuwa matusi. Simuliwaona jana na matusi.
The Thursday special sitting is expected to degenerate into chaos as MPs continue from where they left on Tuesday night.
Honorable members.
Duncan Hemba, KTN.
Of course, the latest development we're getting from that story is that the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy has written to the High Court, has made an urgent application, and that is to contest that special seating. We will be speaking shortly to Siaya Senator and a member of the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, James Orengo, on that. So do stay with us right here on KTN Prime. But let's take you through some of those contentious issues that are emerging in as far as the electoral law changes challenges are concerned. And the big one there, the main issue is around what means of voting and transmission of results is going to be utilized. So currently the law stipulates technology is the way to go. However, Jubilee is seeking to have a fallback plan which is manual. So that is one of the areas there. IEBC to be allowed to procure technology 6 months before the poll, of course, to allow for test runs and everything to be looked into to ensure it's all good to go. However, procurement issues, tendering as well have arisen, and some of these matters are before court. Moving on to the next slide here, compliance with campaign finance laws. The law currently requires that members submit their financial details to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission 8 months to the election, posted on as well. All right, you are watching KTN Prime here on KTN News. Thank you so much for staying with us. Let me remind you our big question tonight. We are asking you whether you think the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy has justifiable reasons to boycott the 2017 general election. Share your views with us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya, or at Sophia Wanuna. 22155 is our SMS number. So keep your views coming, and you're watching KTN Prime. Stay with us. We'll be back with more. Were held today, Uhuru Kenyatta would retain the presidency. This is according to the latest opinion poll released by research firm IPSOS. 50% of those polled said they would vote for President Kenyatta, against just 22% for co-leader Raila Odinga, even as a majority admit that runaway corruption is one of the Jubilee government's biggest failures. Now, pollsters indicate that Raila's low numbers may be attributed to the fact that the coalition is yet to field a single candidate for next year's general election, since all core principals in the coalition are eyeing the presidency. The poll results indicate that the Jubilee Party still maintains huge support in the country at 45%, followed by ODM at 19%, the Code Alliance at 6% rather, and the Wiper Democratic Party at 2%. Now, interestingly, despite many saying that grand corruption is still the Jubilee government's greatest flaw, concerns about hunger and drought ranked highest among most Kenyans, with the cost of living, poor leadership and unemployment closing out the top 5 problems listed by most. The research conducted between the 17th and 19th of December this year polled 1,083 respondents through mobile phone interviews across 41 counties. And as the doctors' strike drags into its 3rd week, Kenya Medical Practitioners, Doctors and Dentists Union officials today arrived at Afya House, the headquarters of the Ministry of Health, to deliberate on the stalemate with the ministry officials. However, after lengthy deliberations, the officials left without speaking to the press. Some officials hinted that the talks had collapsed and they were headed for further consultations. Today's events make matters more complicated, as KMPD officials are due in the Labour Relations Court tomorrow for sentencing on charges of contempt of court before Justice Helen Wasilwa. All right, you're watching KTN Prime, and joining me now in studio is Senator James Orengo. He was also co-chair of that joint committee that was deliberating on the contentious issues around elections 2017 coming up and how they would be conducted. We want to talk about some of those issues now that are arising. Of course, we saw that chaotic special sitting yesterday. There's one set for tomorrow. However, reports indicate that you are moving to court early morning to stop that sitting. What are the grounds for that?
Well, we were in court this evening, quite late.
Okay.
And the grounds, of course, for that challenge in court is that the Speaker has not convened the special sitting in accordance with the Constitution and the standing orders. And we are able to convince the court that there is a prima facie case for the court to consider tomorrow morning.
All right.
And the fact that we're meeting in the morning shows that, the court may make a decision which will have an impact on what is going on.
On what is going on.
Yeah.
We've seen in Senate, especially in as far as the three arms of government and interference, and that process should be allowed to happen. And if in fact there are issues, then especially if it's an arm of government, it should be solved within that arm of government.
Yes.
So are you seeing introducing the judiciary, as many times we've seen Senate argue in especially matters that have judiciary coming into legislation, as an interference? Are you allowing them too much room? Can't this be sorted out within the House?
Yeah,
Is it a procedural issue?
It is possible if there's a spirit of bipartisanship.
Okay.
In the old days, when I was in Parliament, there were issues that arose, and you had this kind of activity in Parliament, even in the presence of the President, President Moi. Went through that kind of problem many times. But when reason prevailed, people were able to sit, like in the IPPG process, people were able to sit and resolve. I think the problem now is that the lack of bipartisanship is making things a little bit difficult and a little bit out of hand. But the important point is that we are a constitutional democracy, so each arm of government can do their bit, but they must do it in accordance with the Constitution.
In accordance with the law.
Yes.
So if you prevail, so perhaps this sitting, then the Speaker will go back or Jubilee and regroup, and another sitting will be called. So let's talk about the issues at hand.
Yes.
And one of the key ones is, you argue technology, as the law currently stipulates, should be how the elections are conducted next year. However, some would wonder, what is your fundamental issue with having a backup plan? Isn't that wisdom?
No, a backup plan, you can have a backup plan which is technology-based.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, if you have a big building like this, if power fails, you don't look for candles. You have a standby generator. And we are saying, if you look at the regulations, actually, it talks about a backup, not just for the election, but even keeping the records after the elections. So there is solutions out there where you can have a backup solution, which is technology-based. Now, mixing the two processes, we have seen it doesn't work. In the last election in 2013, manual, voting and manual transmission of results was the basic electoral process, not electronic. But, the electronic process was complementary, but it was designed to fail. And once it was designed to fail and it failed, the manual process didn't work.
We've had this Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Aden Duale, say that a presentation was made by the IEBC and the Communication Authority saying over 25% of Kenya and over 2,000 sub-locations don't have the requisite network for transmission. You basically have 80% of the country that's covered, 20% that's not. So if backup is still technology-based and you have 20% of Kenyans that do not have that technology, are you not disenfranchising them?
First of all, for identification of voters, you don't really need backup because they're handheld devices.
Right.
And those one, you need just a battery. And, the lifespan for those batteries, if you get the right devices, they're more than 48 hours. Now, what Duale is talking about is completely wrong. In the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, CCK today said that actually they can provide a solution for 99% connectivity in the entire country. You can use satellite phones if that is what is required for purposes of transmission. And CCK are saying they can provide it.
But this will be the first time such an undertaking is happening. Are you still not worried for these individuals who their fate is being put in such a dicey territory? Because then what is the proposal for the areas that are fully not covered, that this is something that will be tried out for the first time there?
Yeah, what I can say about that, CCK itself, they've said that they can offer that solution.
Okay.
Today, they said it before a committee of parliament.
Right.
And let's put it this way. Ghana was able to do it. Fully electronic-based electoral process. India is a very big country, but the way our penetration here is much, much more intense and wider than India. Nigeria was at war. You know, Boko Haram is there in northern and western parts of Nigeria.
Yeah.
And there are areas in Nigeria where there's no connectivity. But for the purpose of election, they were able to provide those solutions.
Yeah.
And they worked.
And there are those who opine, as we bring this to a close, ballot papers in and of themselves, technology in and of itself does not rig elections. It is people.
Yeah.
So would you see that your efforts, and we see the allegations and counter-allegations, are focusing in the wrong direction? Because at the end of the day, even technology could be manipulated.
Technology can be manipulated, but if it is integrated, you know, like, for example, if you look at the various processes in elections, you know, voter identification, election transmission or electronic transmission of results, and biometric registration. If all of them are handled in isolation, then hacking or even interference is quite possible. But if it's an integrated electronic system, it is very difficult to interfere. And by the way, you know, if, for example, you wanted to go to Kisumu, you want to fly to Kisumu, if your fear was that you may crash, then you can never fly. So I think people must take that technology offers better solutions than the manual process.
And finally, we had your party leader say, if there isn't what the court is calling for, then there's not going to be an election next year. How does that happen? How do you ensure it doesn't happen?
Well, we are not saying there's going to be a boycott. We are saying an election should be held which is free and fair.
All right.
And if we cannot attain that threshold, then the elections will be a sham. It will be nonsense holding an election, which we know are not going to be free and fair.
Senator, thank you for making time for KTN Prime.
I also thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I want to bring to your attention that later on this bulletin, my colleague Yvonne Okwara Matole sat down with the Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, where the CS talked of his quest to bring change in the education system in the country. Matiang'i is seen to use a no-nonsense approach when dealing with education matters for the first time in many years. Matiang'i promised Kenyans that national examinations will be conducted within the confines of the law. So make sure to catch that discussion that will be coming up immediately after this newscast on KTN News with my colleague Yvonne Okwara Matole and the CS Education Dr. Fred Matiang'i. You're watching KTN Prime. Stay with us. We'll be back with business news. Let's talk business now, and it is estimated that the African continent loses over $50 billion in illicit financial flows every year. This year's Africa, Caribbean, Pacific's European Union Convention in Nairobi, illicit financial flows formed part of a conversation on how developing countries can and should curb tax evasion, especially by multinational companies.
We are concerned about the impact of illicit financial flows on development finance. Illicit financial flows in ACP and EU states may serve to conceal illegal activities and evade taxes. Because of the increased integration of financial markets, the economic and political significance of illicit financial flows has grown. Transitional corporations are well known for aggressive tax avoidance, which may not necessarily be illegal, but they exploit regulatory weaknesses in national legal systems and lead to considerable losses in public revenues in the countries hosting the corporate groups concerned.
Now, 6 diesel locomotives for the standard gauge railway are set to arrive in the country by January 31st, 2017. The 6 are among 56 locomotives expected as part of the SGR project construction equipment to ensure operations on the SGR commence in June 2017. An extra 43 will be used for movement of cargo, 5 for passengers, while another 8 will be used for shunting operations. The Ministry of Transport Infrastructure says the company met the stipulated standards in executing their mandate as per the contract. Construction of the first phase of the SGR is 98% complete, with works for phase 2A expected to commence in the first quarter of 2017 upon route finalization. And the world's largest beer maker, AB InBev, has agreed to sell its majority stake in Africa's largest Coke bottler to the Coca-Cola company for $3.15 million. The final planned divestment following its purchase of rival brewer SubMiller. AB InBev and Coca-Cola agreed to the transfer of AB InBev 54.5% stake in Coca-Cola beverages and reached an agreement in principle for Coca-Cola to acquire AB InBev's interest in bottling operations in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Swaziland, Lesotho, El Salvador and Honduras for an undisclosed amount. The transactions, subject to relevant regulatory and minority approvals, are expected to close by the end of 2017. AB InBev has now raised some $27 billion from divestments of SubMiller's European, US and Chinese interests, recouping more than a quarter of the £79 billion it paid for the world's second largest brewer. Elections, and I want to read some of your views tonight. Lipa Kamatenda, you said the law was negotiated by both parties and we had consensus why a change of heart by Jubilee you're opposing in as far as the same saying court is justified. And then there is Crown Murigi, you said definitely court should boycott the elections, they're not being treated fairly. And then Zacchaeus Wesonga, you said no, this is all just standing to grounds that are not founded. I am Lamol, you said the elections will take place, all of this is just noise. And then another one here from Joe Asali, yes, all parties involved should agree and walk on the same lane to avoid blame games over the 2017 elections. And many more of your views tonight. We definitely appreciate them. My name is Sophia Wanuna. I want to leave you now in the hands of Moses Wahisi with our sports news. And remember to stay with KTN News, because after this bulletin, Yvonne Okwara Matole recorded an interview with the CS Education, Dr. Fred Matiang'i. He's a man who's been in the headlines, a lot of praise for what he's done in the sector. So you would definitely want to catch that interview to see what he intends to do to clean up the entire education sector. Have a good night and God bless.
A very good evening it is, and welcome to today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. Let me start with matters to do with soccer, where former Borussia Dortmund, Ajax FC and also FC Cologne midfielder, that is none other than Sunday Olise, has been in the country, and today he took to the pitch to make sure that he's taking his wisdom to practice by ensuring that the young talents get some 1, 2, 3 tips in matters to do with how well to play their soccer. Take a look.
Look at the ball. If you play with the ball, look at it. Always see the ball. Now you look up. Okay? Look at the ball. Look. Yeah, I have it. Okay? They like better infrastructure and some help. I think it would be nice to help them. When you have kids like this that are very keen on playing, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make the training facilities a little better. It's good to be back home again, back to our continent, and the kids are very, very enthusiastic, and yeah, you can see they're learning. Yeah.
Actually, as a coach, I've been able to learn 1 or 2 things, especially in terms of technicality of working with young kids, being able to understand them, their abilities, not pressuring them. And one thing that I think Sunday has mentioned is that young players, you should allow them to make mistakes and don't punish them for making mistakes, because I think it's very important for the young players to learn as they grow up, and it will make them good players. So I think for as a coach, I think it was a very exciting experience for me and for the coaches, for the kids as well. One thing that I think we have been lacking is being able to understand the kids and the type of training you set up for young people, for the young kids, and especially in terms of technicality of young players, and it was something new that I've been able to learn.
Today I've learned how to control the ball, head the ball, and how to pass the ball. Yeah.
Development it is, and it is under 20 national championship, where this time out in today's tie, Gor Mahia were able to get an impressive 5-1 victory against the under 20 Ulinzi side. The Gor Mahia tactician is saying one game at a time, and he expects to bag the under 20 title this time out.
Next step, taking each game at a time. Yeah, so the next game pia tutaenda, we give our best, we play our normal football and we give a good show. Pia sisi hatupendi tu kushinda, tunapenda kushinda na tucheze mpira mzuri. Tufurahishe pia mafans.
Hii game tukua tuna approach kama underdogs. Because tukiona game ya kwanza tuli lose. So tunaenda tunachukua game at a time. So to us, your win, tunashukuru God na makochi.
Well, with that we do wind up with today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. Have a lovely night.